Welcome back. Moving on through our round of STIs. Next up is HPV or human papillomavirus. This is the most common STI in the US, and there are about 40 different types. There's a bunch of different viruses that we all just kind of group together as human papillomaviruses. The most common manifestation of this is genital warts. Actually, I should maybe clarify that. Uh, I don't actually know. The most common manifestation actually might be asymptomatic, really, at least until longer infections occur. Um, but definitely genital warts are one of the more common manifestations of a lot of strains of HPV. And HPV is the HPV viruses that are the most common causes of genital warts, if you understand the distinction I'm making. So most infections, as I just said and corrected myself, most infections are asymptomatic and unknown. It's estimated that around 79 million people in the US are infected with it. But again, most of those people aren't even aware. Also, in most cases, it clears up within a couple years. But if it persists, it can lead to things like genital warts. It can also lead to cervical cancer and other forms of cancer. So we really don't like HPV for that reason. It greatly increases your risk of things like cervical cancer, PID, pelvic inflammatory disease, as I mentioned before, has a really, unfortunately, high chance of making women infertile or having other complications. So yeah, we really want to try to prevent it. And so to that end, there's no cure, but we do have vaccines that cover a lot of the more common forms of HPV. So we encourage it for all young men and women after the age of 11. I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about that on the next slide. If someone has genital warts, one of the more common ways that we deal with it is we do just wart removal, either through freezing or electrical currents to like excise them. But usually they do like cryotherapy to freeze off the warts. So again, that's more just because the warts can be painful or just unsightly. People might not like the way they look and stuff. And they can also kind of depending on how bad the infection is, there can be a lot of them or just a few, so it can be kind of a pain to deal with if you depending on how bad the infection is. So the vaccine is available for all people between the ages of 9 and 45. They recommend that people get it at around 11 to 12. The reason is if they're under 14, they only need two shots, but it's three for anyone else. So again, you'd rather have two shots than three. So around the time that people are coming into middle school, we encourage it. It's also around the time that people get their hepatitis B series. It's kind of easy to track and everything. This prevents certain strains, but not all strains, but the major ones that can cause genital warts and a lot of the forms of cancer. The big kind of like media you'll hear around HPV is that you want the vaccine because it protects women from getting cervical cancer, and that is true. But it also is important for men to get. So men should also get HPV because there are other forms of cancer that it can contribute to, not to the same degree as cervical cancer, but it's still, you don't want any forms of cancer, I would think. It also prevents genital warts. And then also, even if it didn't do anything for men and women have sex with each other, right? And so if even if men were totally asymptomatic of anything and they got it and there's no big deal, well, if they could still pass it to women when they had sex, that would still be bad. And we want to prevent transmission, right? So same for any disease. If it only affects one part of the population and the other part isn't affected, well, we still want to make sure that they don't have the potential to pass it to other people. So again, it's important to make sure because a lot of men, and even people just in general, like they don't realize that men also can suffer negative consequences of HPV infection. So that's about it for HPV. You'll see on the next one. Gotta stop saying that because I'm not going to see you.